Kurt?
Yes.
What was the status of the club when you joined?
Well, the club had prospered a little bit with the year before, and when I came to Fairfield, there wasn't a great deal to do here. I met a group of guys, Bruce Glastow, Joe Sint, Steve Ryan, and we played touch football on what were then the fields where the buildings are now. And someone said, are you going to play rugby this spring? And I said, rugby, and went down and watched a practice or two, maybe a game. And I thought this was really the part of the university I wanted to be involved with.
And how do you think it grew from the time you first joined to when you graduated?
Well, there was a core group, your year, Bill, and our year, a year later in 1970. And I think we played well together, we played hard, we really enjoyed one another, practiced a lot. And I think the team came together. It was a couple of really good seasons. I think our senior year was a little different. The times were changing, and I think things got rocky in general, not just at the university, but around the country. And I think that was reflected to a degree in the rugby team in that senior year. Sort of the magic of 68, 69 was really not there. Things were coming apart, and it was less fun that senior year. But we still had a great time.
So the university's view of the club changed over that period of time, do you think? Or how was the club received?
I think the club was received well. There were often games where at that time there were lots of Jesuits on the faculty. They would come down and watch the games. We were a big draw on fall weekends, spring weekends. So I think we were well received. I think the university was always nervous about what would happen perhaps down the beach after a rugby game, but I think we were well received. We felt really comfortable, part of the institution.
Now, what was it about rugby and the club that attracted you to it specifically?
Well, certainly the athletics mattered, but really it was the camaraderie. I met a group of people, a group of guys, and we enjoyed each other's company. It was fun. Went to practice every afternoon. We hung around together. We competed hard each week. We socialized with one another. It was just a really rewarding, friendships that developed, and those have remained with me now for well over 45 years. And I cherish those memories, I really do. Sometimes I tell stories or try to tell a story with the family, and they glaze over, but I smile.
Two of the highlights of your time at Fairfield playing rugby were no doubt the win over Old Blue in the fall of 1968 and the dedication of Grauert Field in the spring of 1969. What do you remember about those?
Well, it sounds corny, but I think I can remember parts of that Old Blue game as if they were last week. Sort of where we were on the field, seeing my brother-in-law, Quinn Murphy, Steve Carey scoring. I literally think I can remember that, or else I'm telling myself a great story. So that was, and I remember the sense of elation when we won the game. That was really, really special. The Grauert Field was obviously a wonderful afternoon, but I think it was also an emotional experience. Chris there in his dress whites, honoring his brother who had been killed. As he was a pilot in the Navy and he had died. We dedicated the field. It was a great ceremony. A lot of meaning attached to it. And then we played Penn, and we beat Penn, and so that was great. And we had a great celebration that night down at the famous Sea Ranch. Mm-hmm. And I think that went on all night and into the following morning. But it was a wonderful day. That was a great day.
Speaking of the social side of rugby, what's your take on that, both in terms of the game itself and at Fairfield?
Well, it is an integral part of playing rugby, and you watch a giant football game at Michigan State, for example, and you read in the paper that the game's over, the team showers up and gets on an airplane, the visiting team, and leaves. Well, that's not the tradition of rugby. We shake hands when the game's over, and then we get together later and we talk, and you meet people that you played hard against. But it's a great experience. The difficulty is balancing that with with the need to have a moderately good time, and occasionally that doesn't happen. But it's always been a big part of rugby, and it's still part of rugby here at Fairfield.
What was the worst injury you sustained playing rugby?
Well, I lost my 2 front teeth down at Corbett Field, so that was no fun. And then later when I played for Essex, I lost a couple more front teeth. And so
did they grow back?
They didn't grow back, and then later on, eventually I had to have a bridge made. And my wife, Mary, a true fan of rugby, never lets me forget that. So that was my worst injury. And actually, when I was playing for Essex, I got hurt, and I really couldn't continue to play. So that was the end of my active rugby career.
Who did you least like to play against?
I'm not sure there was any particular team. The men's teams were particularly tough. In those days, the college teams, we were a college team, we played the men's teams from New York, and some of them were pretty tough. I don't remember a particular college team. I think we wanted to beat Villanova, and we did. We did on, I remember 2 occasions, once down there, and then they came up here, and we had run into them down in the Bahamas, I think, and they boasted that they would kick our ass when they got up here, and we really thumped them. So that was a lot of fun, because they were louder than we were, loudmouth players.
Well, do you have memories of the old Corbett Field?
I sure do. I can remember running up and down those hills. But a neat part was when a visiting team would arrive who had never played here before, and we gave them directions to come to Corbett Field, and they'd arrive and they'd look at the field and they'd be dumbfounded. They had never thought that to be playing up and down hill, but it was. I mean, I think it was to our advantage because we practiced on it every day, but that was a lot of fun.
You were on a tour or 2. Do you have memories of those tours and anything particularly noteworthy?
I do. I remember I think it was my sophomore year, the spring of my sophomore year, we all went down to the Bahamas because a team from the Bahamas had come up and we had hosted them in the fall, and we went down, and it was a magical tour. We had a wonderful time. They were great hosts. I think we played okay rugby. We were all together. It was one of those rites of passages. And then we took a tour to England and Wales when I was a senior, and that was magical too. And I particularly remember meeting the Welsh players in their homes and at their clubs, and that was wonderful. The Welsh were one of the best teams in the world at the time. They invited us to an international match in Cardiff. We saw Wales play France, and France was expected to win, and the Welsh won, and then the whole city erupted into just a great party. That was truly terrific.
So with all of your experiences and all of the years you spent in rugby, Kurt, what's it all meant to you?
Well, it's meant the camaraderie, the people I met, the friends I made, and I said at I think it was the 45th reunion, I said, here we are 45 years later and we're still good friends. We see one another, it doesn't take long, a quick smile and maybe 1 or 2 stories, and we're back together again, and that's been really rewarding. I made some of the best friends in my life. And I also met my wife through rugby. I played with her brother Quinn, and that's how we met one afternoon after a rugby game at Holy Cross. So that was.
Any other thoughts or comments?
I think this when we formed Friends of Fairfield Rugby, it was the right time to do that. We're at a point in our lives, I think, where we can, especially the older Friends of Fairfield Rugby, I think we can help the club, we can help the university, and it's just great to once again get together and see one another, talk with one another when we do our conference calls, get involved with planning for the 50th. Yeah, it's all good.
Great.
It's all good.